Hi everyone, this is Herrick.com, and today I wanted to record a video about how much money sellers made in 2021. So here, a new report just came out from adamsdata.com. You can see on the screen recording, home seller profits soar again in 2021 as prices shoot to new records. We've been talking about this for the last year, kind of just that year over year appreciation. So here, shows that home sellers nationwide realized a profit of $94,000 on the typical sale in 2021. That was up 45% from $64,000 in 2020 and up 71% from $55,000 2 years ago. Profits rose in more than 90% of the housing markets across the country. The $94,000 profit on the median price home in 2021 represented a 45% return on investment compared to the original purchase price. So what they're doing is they're taking data from people who bought homes. This is traditional home buyers like you and me, investors, just all the transactions, and they're seeing how much money did that person make from when they bought the home to when they sold the home. And right now, 2021, the typical is $94,000. Both raw profits and return on investments have improved nationwide for 10 years straight. So we're in 2022 going back to 2012. We know the housing bubble in 2008 had a few years of, really poor returns as, REOs processed, short sales processed. And then in 2012, 13, 14, things started to come back slowly. Moreover, last year's gain in ROI, or return on investment, up nearly 12 percentage points, was the biggest annual increase since 2013. So after that housing crash, the bubble in 2008 and 9, things, like I said before, they started rebounding, and then they had like a quick turn on when a lot of that, shadow inventory moved out and people started buying again and started driving up prices again. Here, a surge of buyers financially unscathed by the pandemic continued flooding the market throughout 2021. So there's a lot of people, while the pandemic was going on early on, they weren't financially affected. We know a lot of people were, tourism industry, restaurants, bars, things like that were. But if you were working in an office space where you could just go work from home, you weren't necessarily affected. So it's talking about those people. These people were driven heavily. They moved a lot by a combination of historically low interest rates, because the Fed immediately dropped the Fed funds rate when this occurred, and a desire by many households to trade congested, virus-prone areas for the perceived safety and wider spaces of a single-family home and yard. As they chased a tight supply of homes for sale, prices spiked, and so did seller profits. So we saw that. That is exactly what happened in Utah. People were moving from Los Angeles, San Francisco, other, quote unquote, more dense areas to Utah, which, to me, I think is dense, but we still have single family homes with yards. Even though my little lot is, 0.1 acres or something, it's still big compared to living in a tower of, 100 condos. So those people specifically left those communities, whether it's San Francisco, LA, wherever it is, and they came to places like Salt Lake City, Boise, Denver, because there's perceived safety, because there is more space between people. And that is what pushed prices up so much. A few signs that prices could flatten out in 2022 emerged late last year in the form of declining affordability, because the prices have gone up so much. In Utah, they went up almost 25%. Nationwide, it was more like 15%. Lower investor profits and rising foreclosure activity. That was layered over rising inflation and likely increases in mortgage rates this year. The Fed's talked about doing 3 rate increases. There was a meeting yesterday, which is January 25th, of the Fed. Didn't raise the Fed funds rate yet. But the current imbalance in demand and supply suggests that there is room for at least some additional price gains. So, and we're going to go over this because home supply is still super low. Demand is still there because rates are still near zero. Mortgage rates have been creeping up recently, but the Fed funds rate is still near zero. So in Utah right now, they're talking about, less gains than last year, which last year was 20 to 25%. Here we're hearing things of like 5 to 8%. Typically you're probably looking more to 2 to 4% in a normal market cycle, not a coronavirus or, this big inequilibrium. But 2021 will go down as one of the greatest years for sellers and one of the toughest for buyers. It was tough. The U.S. median home price increased 17% in 2021. We talked about Utah being closer to 25%. The latest price spike came as more than 5.7 million single-family houses and condominiums sold in 2021, the highest number since at least since 2005, which was before the bubble of 2008. So let's look at some of this information. There's this other company called Keeping Current Matters that tracks a lot of real estate information. So here is a map of inventory of home over the last 20 years. So that other article talked about how 2006 had a lot of appreciation. 2007, supply was increasing ever more because there was this crazy demand. Builders were happy to build, buyers were buying stuff with loans that were stated income only, so they just kept building, kept selling, things like that until the whole thing came tumbling down. And then we see the inventory just kind of start to shrink. We go through 2011 when they're still moving through all that REO inventory, all the foreclosure inventory, and then at the same time builders started to slow down building. And then things kind of like follow this. This is months of supply. So in 2012, 4.5 months of supply, and they just kind of sat there. And this is when, we see in that other article, when things started to improve. Once there was more of an equilibrium of supply and demand, things started to improve because supply came back down, demand was there. They also started raising interest rates in about 2015. But we see here in 2021, the lowest record low of supply, 1.8 months, and that is incredibly low. I track this every month with my market report. Next up, let's look at that Fed funds rate. So this is over the last 20 years, and the Fed funds rate and the mortgage interest rate, they're not exact. They don't match each other, but they support each other. And as there's talk of the Fed raising rates, you'll see that mortgage interest rate start to creep up, and it's been doing exactly that the last 3 weeks. Every day it seems to have crept up a little bit more. With the Fed not raising the Fed funds rate yesterday, I don't know what the mortgage rate is right now, but I'm thinking it's 3.5 to 3.8, somewhere around there. But here we see, as the bubble crashed, here's April 16th, 2007, 2008, the Fed just started dropping rates from 4.5% down to near zero in 2019 to help the economy recover. And they just kept them there while we went through all that excess supply, starting to move all those foreclosures and things. And then they started raising rates in 2015. And then, that steady increase didn't really affect sales because inventory was still low. But as soon as the pandemic started, interest rates back to zero immediately, because that's what this Fed does to stimulate the economy. And we know that with the unscathed buyers, these people who weren't affected necessarily that much by the pandemic, they didn't lose their jobs, they didn't lose income. Those are the people, they took advantage of the low interest rates either to refinance or to buy a new home, to sell and move to a more perceived safe area like Utah or Boise or Idaho, places like that. And they're taking advantage of this, and that is really what's this inequilibrium of supply and demand. High demand because of interest rates, people who still were making good money, and the low supply of homes because builders hadn't built as much over the last decade. And certain sellers, they weren't interested in selling because they were worried. They were concerned about people coming into their home, possibly with COVID, things like that. So it's this perfect storm, like I've said over the last year, is this perfect storm that has caused this inequilibrium to occur that has driven our prices just through the roof last year. Hopefully things stabilize a little bit more. Buyers are still kind of at a disadvantage. You do need just to plan right. It's always a good time to buy real estate for the long term, no matter what rates are, no matter what prices are, because over the long time, you're going to be safe. It's a good investment, but right now, sellers are still in control. If they list a property, it's getting bid up. So wanted to share this information with you because it's really timely. It's really important as we enter 2022. So if you're thinking about selling, get a real market analysis for your home. You can go to my website at heyeric.com, opt in, get the information. I'll get a market study over to you immediately. If you're a buyer, you want to talk more and understand what's going on in the market to put you in the best position, comment below with your questions, and I'll contact you. I'll reach right back out to you and get you all the answers you could ever need, okay? Thanks so much and have a great day.